question here, and this is seriously critical. Did you clear the kitchen counter so Robin had a kitchen again?
Yes, I did. I did. Yeah. All I did was relocate them into different rooms in the house so nobody could see them because we have no kids at home. I'm a grandpa, so
I know
I
you
put
are.
them in
I
the
see
guest
pictures.
bedroom.
Yeah.
So they're in the guest bedroom. I told her when we have a house guest, I will move them. We never have a house guest because we got 2 big Dobermans, and they don't like anybody.
Oh, really? I don't know. I like Dobies. They're fun.
But
They're nice dogs.
But I like it that way. It gives me an excuse to tell people not to come over. I'm like, I can't come over because of my dogs.
So I guess I have to haul Lucy out there then and find an RV park nearby somewhere, huh?
So Carvin, you were saying about 80% of your batches go as planned. Do you find you learn more from the 20% that don't?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a lot of the stuff that you see on the forum. Sometimes things just don't go as planned, AJ. It's like I've had yeast quit on me. I've had it all. And
the more you do, the more of these things you've seen.
Exactly. So if you're practicing your craft, you're going to come across stuff like that. I had a mead last month. Everything was perfect. It just craps out on me. Things happen. I had to repitch some yeast, and it happens. But yeah, that 80%, you do learn a lot. That's when the wheels come off sometime, and that's okay.
And you learn more from figuring out how to put the wheel back on, right?
Sometimes they're great mistakes. You learn. You end up having 10 gallons of Moscow Mule Mead, and you consume 5 gallons on the Super Bowl. So good things happen sometimes.
Or you have that batch where you bring it out after everyone's already had a few.
Yeah. I try to just let people fill up on the session needs when they come over to keep them away from my good stash. I have a hard time sometimes. It's like literally like when I'm trying to decide what I'm going to send to Thompson. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. I go in and I'll get a mead, and I usually always taste something before I send it off to a comp. And my wife,
You're cutting out there.
I went back to the room. I was like, I can't let those go. I'm not going to hear those.
You're cutting out. Go back to wherever it was you were standing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you?
There you are.
That's better.
Yeah. Don't move around, dude.
All right, sorry about that. Yeah. Sometimes my cell reception is kind of crazy from my house, but sometimes it's hard to let meads go, and I have my favorite meads that I just won't let go out of the house sometimes, and it's hard to let them go. And on the subject of comps, that's, I hear stuff about comps all the time. Folks, go walk in those folks' shoes sometime. It's tough. It's tough when you have to sit. It's tough when you have to sit down at that table with that mead in front of you and you have to fill out the score sheet. It's tougher than what you think it is. And it's a difficult job. It's a really difficult job. And kudos to the people who put on the comps. Kudos to the judges. It's a very, very tough thing to do. And those people deserve a lot of credit. I don't remember the last time I seen a post on Facebook to say kudos to the judges, but you come on there and you bitch about something, about a comp.
Yeah.
That's when I just need a virtual pimp hand across the internet. Like, get your ass away from the computer.
Well, after 2 days, I mean, I've been judging the Mazer Cup since it started. I mean, I was one of the founders. And then I judged at the International Mead Festival for 3 or 4 years before that. And it's hard. I mean, after 2 days of intensive mead judging, and you're judging 80, 90, 100 meads a day, easy, you know. And then coming back sometimes and then judging mini BOSs for some of those categories, it's rough. And I get to the end of it. Yeah, I get to the end of it, and I feel like I've been dragged through a nut hole backwards. It's hard. It's, you know, I mean, I'm whipped. I got no voice. My stomach hurts. You know, I just, you know, you feel sick actually at the end of 2 days of judging, and because you know your body's
you can get
just
meaded out.
Yeah, you can. I don't want to see mead for 2 months after the Mazer Cup usually at all. You know, people are like, "Here, try this." I'm going, "No, thank you. I'll wait."
Thanks, but no.
But you know what? Sometime in those late days and those late hours, you know, you get that one mead. They're like, you know what? Hey, I'm glad I stayed. Mm-hmm. I remember, I think his mead. I know Ryan's still there somewhere in the background. He
wants to chip in on the comps thing. So yeah. He's sitting there at home with his leg elevated.
I remember, we were judging. I was judging traditionals at the Orpheus Cup, and it was late. And I remember having his Colorado traditional. It's like that mead was a Red Bull. It's like, this shit's so good. You know, it's just like, wow, you know, it's like, wow, you know, and that's why I judge. It's like, man, you come across that one mead that's just like, transforms you. It's like, wow. You know, I remember having, some of Merrick's meads and some of Pav's and Davis, and the list goes on and on.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Of course, you don't know it's their mead until afterwards.
No.
And you see the winners post, and you're like, oh, I remember that mead. I was down on the luck on that one.
Well, Ricky
tasted it, and it just like brings back to life.
Oh yeah, Ricky Diaz's strawberry from last. Ricky Diaz's strawberry from last year was out of this world, and Danny, of course, didn't know it was Ricky's until after. It was funny because Ricky was serving. He was a steward, and I'm like raving on and on about his strawberry, and he's like standing in the background with both hands over his mouth.
He's still mad at me for beating him, but
well, and then two or 3 years ago, there was a Chipotle that took best in show, and the home comp was completely and utterly around the bend out of this world. It was the best effing mead you ever tasted. It was so damn good. And it just narrowly beat a strawberry that I was absolutely in love with, and turns out was made by a buddy of Pete's using one of Pete's recipes. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. That I've never been able to make that
So, Ryan,
recipe.
you want to chime in on comps?
Yeah.
I know Ryan a great thread about comps.
Yeah, it was a great.
Well, and it actually wasn't. It wasn't. I didn't want to reply or talk about the thread, although that was a good thread. I was happy to see we got through with some civility, and I was glad that you didn't have to shut it down. But I thought for our listeners, I wanted to give a little bit of a personal testimony for the first time that I went to the Mazer Cup. You guys were talking and inviting everybody and saying how cool it is, and everything you said was exactly the case, without a doubt. But I would also like to encourage our listeners, if you're considering coming, to volunteer. Yeah. Let me tell you what I did. The first competition I ever sent a mead in was to the Mazer Cup, and probably most of the entries I sent in were in categories. Well, in fact, every one of them was in a category that I'd never tasted before, because I'd never tasted a mead, period, when I sent in my first entries.
Wow.
Well, I also wanted to volunteer as a table steward, or I didn't know I was wanting to be a table steward at the time, but I did volunteer. And I can tell you this, that I walked away with so much more confidence than you could ever get even making 100 single-gallon batches at your house over the next year. And here's why. I thought I was doing pretty good, but I didn't know because I'd never tasted another mead. I got on, and I was fortunate enough, or I felt very fortunate, to become a table steward right away. And in doing so, I could sit there and I could listen to the judges talk and converse with each other. And I was seeing how they were doing the scoring and all. And it wasn't very long after that they were allowing me to drink some of these different things as they were, coming off the table. And I was compiling all the scores and all of that. But what I learned in just that first day, and then of course this was reinforced even more so the second, was I walked away from there really feeling that without a doubt I had a good handle on what was going on. And I also walked away thinking, I thought I had a pretty good palate, and I thought I could taste things pretty well. And in other words, I didn't really know, but I thought I was doing pretty good. And I can tell you that by the end of those 2 days, I walked out of there 2 feet taller as a mead maker, just from my experience of being at a comp, tasting a bunch of nice things, meeting friends. I was pretty quiet the first year for sure. And then last year I was pretty quiet too for other reasons. But anyway, I just want to reiterate to you guys that are listening tonight, you should really consider coming out. But also, even more so, you should consider to volunteer as a steward. And then I'm sure there's a whole bunch more of you guys out that are wondering whether or not I should become a certified judge. And I would just like lastly to say that I can guarantee, even if you don't end up really, doing the circuit very much or traveling around to different competitions, you will benefit by becoming a judge. And that I really look back at that as like my first real solid shot in the arm about becoming a mead maker. And I just want to encourage all of you that are on the fence about that. You should really come out and meet everybody, and it's great, loads of fun, and you'll walk out of there with miles and miles more of experience in a different way than, mixing up a bunch of stuff. But I really want to encourage you all to consider coming and consider volunteering. And if you can't make it to the Mazer Cup, at least go and volunteer at the competitions in your local area. I promise you will benefit by it greatly.
If I could add to that, the experience I got volunteering in the pouring room, just being able to smell and at the end of the day taste some of the stuff was a huge thing for me. That was probably worth the entire cost of the plane ticket getting out there, never minding meeting all you wonderful people at the same time. But just having a chance to taste all of these meads made from honeys I don't have access to was amazing. And getting to sit in, and getting to sit in on, I think it was Wayne and a couple of other folks judging the best of show and them letting us taste stuff at the same time was amazing. Like, just getting to taste and see what they're saying according to what you're tasting is there's no amount of money that can pay for that experience.
Yeah, and I'm glad this is a adult show, because I know if you tried to say pouring room, but it really sounded like you said porn room.
Yeah.
There's no porn room at the Mazer Cup.
Well, there wasn't last year. We could fix that this year.
No. There ain't no kind of party going on like that. No.
No, we know. Now we know. I've never seen it, and I was president for the first 5 years of the Mazer Cup. I don't remember ever seeing a porn room.
There is a hot tub.
Yeah,
but there is a hot tub.
That was a slip.
Yeah. So if you're coming to see Mead porn, you're not going to see it. I'm sorry.
Well, you're going to get some good needs, but
oh my God, yeah. Oh, and we started to say how, you got the events during the day, but in the evening is when everybody gets together. Many, if not most of the people are staying there at the hotel. They're coming from other areas, so they're staying at the hotel. And there are get-togethers that go on in the